And we are live.
Yay! I am Old New Dude, and he is.
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son, and Chris the Crow is waving from the wall. Happy hump day, everyone. And Centric Excellence says hello. Oh,
Hello.
and I think Kirsty already told us she's Irish, so I probably should have remembered that. Anyway, one of the things that, yeah, as I was just saying that about like a week and a half ago, I think it was, Preston was talking about how the Azor High prophecy is presented in A Clash of Kings by Saladin Sahn. But in all the later books, it appears to have been rewritten as the born under salt and smoke of the blood of the dragon and so forth, right? And his point is we should realize that George changed his mind, that the presentation of that as originally envisioned of a Smith with Nissa Nissa does not appear again, and there's nothing about the bleeding star and the born under bleeding star and being the prince that was promised and so forth, and that it appears to be completely separate in A Clash of Kings from that. And
Mm.
then in the later books, it seems to have been changed, right? And so his his point was we have to realize that George does in fact retcon things, and yeah, I probably spent too much time, for example, trying to figure out, well, why is Jack and Hagar the opposite of the way the faceless men are? Well, because he changed his mind about how faceless men work, really, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the real answer. Now you can try and twist it and reinterpret and so forth, but the real answer is he changed his mind about whether or not faceless men are willing to kill their own fathers and people they know,
Mhm.
and whether they worship Valor or have considered Valor to be an aspect of the many-faced God. Um,
Now, I take stuff like that, retcons and changes, especially when it comes to George, with a grain of salt.
because
Um,
he could be playing with unreliable narrators and so forth, right? Yeah, absolutely. That's fair. I'm just saying it is probably the case that that's what's going on, right? That he
yeah.
changed his mind about how faceless men worked, that he changed his mind about what the Azor High prophecy should be, and so forth. And so it's definitely worth considering the interpretation that George just changed his mind and the previous version of these things is not valid. Like I do think that's absolutely likely true, but
Mm.
it's also possible that he's hiding things with unreliable narrators and things such that some of the early contradictions really are deliberate, right?
Right.
And there
Now,
probably are some of those that you could mistakenly assume are mistakes by the author that have been corrected.
yeah, which I think is a lot of things that he's probably doing. Wins the winner. He's probably trying to retcon this slightly to make it work easier. But when it comes to the blacksmith, I mean, now, are we told the prophecy of the next one by Salador, or is it just how the first one became
Well,
a?
and that could be it. He could just say, well, Salvador San's culture is completely different from everything else, and that's why his prophecy is completely different from everybody else's.
Well,
That's certainly
there's
possible.
the theory that the descriptions of these saviors from all over the world are one person, or they're all part
Yeah, and
of
that's kind of presented
the
in the world
last
of Ice and Fire.
the last hero's other 12 um, accomplices, friends, cohorts.
Yeah, of course, that's the original
The
story from the first book is the last hero, right?
yeah,
Um, Ripples of time travel mayhaps, says Chris the Crow. Sure, sure. And as I said, you could make the argument, well, Salar San's interpretation of the prophecy and who Zor High was are completely different from everybody else's. That's certainly, and that's probably if you tried to corner George, he would probably say, unreliable narrator, Salar San has a different prophecy than everybody else and so forth, right?
well, I mean,
But I mean,
the last hero and Zora High don't have to be the same person.
oh, of
There are
course
those
not.
that think that John is the last hero, but Danny is a Zora High.
Or Nissa Nissa.
Yeah, so I mean, there
So
plenty of different opinions on the subject, and by the end of the book, chances are only one opinion will be correct. Once he starts,
How about that? I think George likes the idea that you can reapply these prophecies to 100 different ways to 100 different things that happened in the books and so forth. So I'm not sure he'd ever do that. his.
Uh,
I
I
mean,
tend to
you've
think
read
that a lot
Fever
of people,
Dream. His prophecies are usually things that motivate the characters that aren't really valid. Let's. I mean, and we know that visions are being sent to people, right? And
yeah,
so the prophecies are probably there to motivate characters rather than to actually be fulfilled. That tends
right.
to be how prophecies work with George.
Yeah, well, you got the self-fulfilling prophecy that
Oh yeah,
uh, Cersei is working her way through actually creating
sure.
um, as she goes along. And then, yeah, I think there are those that remo- Cersei's prophecy that she's fulfilling. I think it if the prophecy to Maggie the Frog was sent by somebody else, was to start Cersei down the path of her own demise, which starts in motion other moves that are being done on the game board, the giant Cybass game. Am I gonna see a doggy? Oh yeah, I knew it was coming. But the prophecies are just another tool to move the pieces on the board.
Different doggies here. Okay, sorry. All right. Now they're starting to wrestle with each other a little bit. All right, make it noisy.
My
Anyway,
little
sorry about that.
is underneath a blanket in the living room, so hopefully she doesn't start missing me and yelping.
Of course, my cutest and best behaved dog is the one that like ignores these and never comes near me while I'm doing these. But you've seen Leo before. I call him the raccoon panda.
I think it's he's avoiding me. You're the
Maybe.
encyclopedia, and I'm the goofball.
Anyway.
So
Anyway, sorry about that. Let's. So, did you want to you want to go through brand stuff? I was mentioning that
yeah,
one thing we could do.
we're kind of running out of time and everything, and so
Yeah, we
yeah,
didn't have
yeah.
time to really do this chapter with in terms
Well,
of
I mean, if
discussing.
it was Danny, we would definitely take the extra time to go through what she saw in the House of the Undying. So, I mean, with it being Bran, I think we need to do the due diligence on the visions that he had for sure.
All right, all right. Let's take a look here. Yeah, and as we said, this is this is the chapter that's most gives us the biggest look into what's going on. And all right, Green Dreams, Seven Tour this Mira, blah blah blah. He ate. It had a bitter taste. All once he was back home. Okay, so we started off with Lord Eddard, right where Winterfell Bran whispered. His father looked up. Who's there?
Well, I mean, that's where they get it in the show for the Tower of Joy. They pull from that chapter there with Bran saying something and his father hearing it.
Mother Line says regarding time travel, I just started Bodies on Netflix. Also, Hello Family. I remember Bodies. Yeah, I watched that. That's pretty good.
I haven't watched that one. Hey, mother. Yeah, so yeah, they definitely stole that for the show for the Tower of Joy. And I know everybody bashes that sword fight scene, but for Game of Thrones, like compared to other shows like Witcher, I mean, Henry Cavill is just a freaking sword master looking actor that just moves perfectly for the role and everything. But for Game of Thrones, other than the Red Viper versus the Mountain, uh, that sword fight was pretty cool looking. I mean, even if you watch it with them replacing it with lightsabers for Game of Thrones and their inability to be able to choreograph a sword fight. Case in point, Jamie versus Ned was just the ugliest sword fight I think I've ever seen since the 1980s. But I mean,
And
it
I
was
don't
pretty.
know how. Yeah, I don't know how you would ever show a dramatic sword fight with somebody with a two-handed sword either.
I
You
don't.
can't make
The actor.
you can't
I mean,
you can't
even
make an impossibly
down
light
to
strong two-handed sword to work with, right? I mean,
well, even if it was just down to young Ned versus against Sir Arthur, and even though it was only a couple of seconds long, they moved pretty well. I mean, I'm not a sword. I mean, I got a lot of swords, but Could I hold myself up against the average person? Probably. But could I do what they do on that show, especially in the fight there at the Tower of Jordan? Hell no, I couldn't do all that. But they moved pretty well together in the short dance that they had when it was just them two. So I mean, there's if you want to nitpick it, there's one spot where Sir Arthur Dane's sword is underneath any of young Ned's armor when it's actually just hitting the cloth. I mean, you can nitpick it to death. I've seen plenty of people do it. But which is
Hot pie might be Azor Ahai too. Just saying.
so yeah, I thought the Tower of Joy sword fight was pretty good to watch, even though there are those out there that bash it left and right. But yeah,
But
they definitely
Tommen is definitely Azor Ahai. Trust.
it is known. It is known. So yeah,
I think it's possible that Ned assumes it's his dead brother communicating with him through the weirwood.
ooh,
Ooh.
nice.
Ooh, and so Bran could get mistaken for Bran.
Well,
Or
Ned,
Bran could
now
get
Nan,
mistaken for Brandon if you wanted to.
yeah, well, that goes on with the old Nan mistaking one Brandon for another. So
Right,
that is
right.
possible.
Yeah, sure.
Now, is
All right,
this
let's see.
supposed to be the first time we see Ned in the Godswood cleaning his sword, or just any generic cleaning of the sword?
Oh, good question. Because he's at this point he's not commenting on how young he is, so it should be recent. So it probably would be, wouldn't it? I thought about that way.
I automatically assumed it's the first time we see Ned in the Godswood cleaning his sword after the beheading of the Night's Watchman. But I know George likes to use our assumptions against us, so I'm scared to
Sure.
assume. But I
Yeah,
still assume
but
that it's the first time.
yeah, it has to be sometime fairly recently anyway, right? Because he
I would
doesn't
think,
notice him being. Yeah. Do you
I mean,
believe in the Lannister
ritual.
kids?
It's ritual. He does it all the time, especially when he has to dispel the king's justice. That he's there cleaning it. So I still think it's like the first time that we see Ned there. So
Yeah. So the answer to your question, do you believe that the Lannister kids are King Aerys' bastards theory? Yes, and right. So see Triplets are Grand's episode 5. So if you go to Asher's Trueborn Son YouTube channel, there's 7 videos there. The fifth one is about Oedipus and Jaime, and it goes through the history and explains why the history confirms that they're bastards. It does not disprove that they're bastards. Anyway, go on.
one of his videos, one of his 7 videos, has more information in it than any 5, 6, 7, 8 of my videos back in the day. Yeah. So, like I said, when I say he's my encyclopedia, I mean it. He's definitely got a lot of knowledge in there. So there's
Yeah, there's a heck of a lot more to it, and Bridge 4 and Gray Area both have videos about it too. In fact, I think Gray might have 2 of them. Maybe Bridge has 2 and Gray has 1, or Gray has 2 and Bridge has 1. I can't remember. But there's in the description. In the description, I think I have links to all 3 of those. I think. Like sorry.
That's one I think. Bridge Ford, usually his stuff it's like 5-minute, 6-minute videos. So, but he still puts a lot of knowledge in it.
Yeah, a lot of content packed into it. Yeah. And there was a more elaborating on that, but again, I've gone through all of the well, maybe not all of the evidence. In fact, nowhere near all of the evidence. Every time we reread it, I find more stuff that tells me that they are. But and then in terms of Tyrion, there's actually hints that he's trueborn, but he could be a chimera, right? We do like the chimera theory, and there's a less than 3-minute video called something like Science Update on Preston Jacobs' channel where he talks about that. And then we've talked about it, and there's a playlist on my channel called Thistle's Theories, and I know one of those 4 videos we went into pretty good depth on that.
Yeah, we went through a lot when we kind of like speed dating through theories
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Lady Thistle. Speaking of Lady Thistle had put together a list of theories, and we were going through those. And so yeah, definitely recommend those 4 videos. I'm not in all of them. I'm in half of them. Anyway, but
So
you
we
and
only
Lady
have,
Thistle and Lizzie are in all of them, I believe. So certainly you and Lady Thistle are, and I think Lizzie is too. Like Theon thinking the gods are talking to him, but it's Bran just pumped to see a familiar face. Yeah, I wonder how many people are like, I heard the gods, and and it's just Bran
saying hello.
being like, hello. Uh,
Well, I want to say this is one of the def. What's the correct way of saying it?
no, not Tyrion as a time traveling fetus. No, that's not what that's about. Anyway, sorry.
I truly believe that this is another instance where I think it's confirmed that Godspeak traveling on the wind is confirmed. I mean,
Yeah,
we
OSHA
see,
tells us how it works, right?
yeah, it tells us how it works. It tells us how the communication goes. It could be what the Ravens listen to. The Ghost of High Heart is listening to the wind. I mean, even if the wind itself is not really making any noise, when it moves the grass, the dry leaves, all the sounds that are created from the wind, is what, in my mind, I think Godspeak is.
Yeah, OSHA
So
seems to always be right. Old Nan, you can point to some things where she's very prejudiced against and says things that are ridiculously wrong and prejudiced against the wildlings. But with OSHA, it's hard to come up with something OSHA says where it doesn't seem like it's always right.
yeah, well,
Anyway,
she's the other side of the coin of Old Nan. You have
well, and they often agree, especially it's yeah. So she's like the old Nan without the wildling prejudices that make some of old Nan's things completely wrong.
right.
So anyway, no, not time traveling fetus. It's the chimera and the 2 heads and that sort of thing, and the miscolored eyes. Bran is using the Weirwoods like a Yahoo chats in 1999.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you think that
Chat roulette prayer. Oh yeah. Chat roulette. Okay, gotcha.
um, do you think that Bloodraven saw that Ned heard Bran and then raised an eyebrow? If it's possible that he was actually able to raise an eyebrow at what Bran was capable of doing, like off the get go. I mean, pretty much without that much training, was able to speak to Ned.
Maybe. I mean, he doesn't seem rattled. He seems like he just immediately dismisses it. Oh, just a coincidence. This is just here. You heard some wind. Certainly, that's how we're supposed to think it is. Do you think it's intentional that Loras is gay and has a rainbow cloak at some point, or is it that that Renly is gay and then he has a rainbow guard and so forth? Yeah, George has been asked about that, and he apparently was clueless that, that he was doing the rainbow symbolism around the gay characters. But come on, I mean, maybe it was subconscious, but come on. Well, do you believe song by story? So we got a similar question to last time, right? And where somebody came in and was like, the books will never be finished, and I went on and on about the worst case scenario, which Lady Thistle doesn't like it when we talk about the worst case scenario. But the point is, we are getting some sort of ending. We are going to, and the reason is that sorry, Lady Thistle, I have to go through this again, but. I think people when they hear this, it really is. I think it really is pretty convincing. So you've got George, who has 75% of a book done, right? Who has told us that if he saw the end coming and he was in a situation similar to Wheel of Time, that he would take steps to try and get an ending to his fans. And then he claims that if he got hit by a bus, then sorry, there's no notes or anything. And I'm like, well, that's clearly not true. You got 75% of a book done. We've seen early drafts of other books and things. We've seen outlines and things, and we know. In fact, I don't think I ever mentioned this to you. the guys who wrote the Expanse, they know how it ends, who's at the end, and what the last line is.
They know
And so
George.
they're not willing to tell us what that is yet, obviously. But one of my arguments has always been, we know that they met with Dan and Dave. We know there are probably more people in the room than just Dan and Dave and George. We know there's more people than Dan, Dave, and George that have heard George's version of the ending. We apparently know that the Expanse guys know the ending, and even know what the last line is. And been one of them, the one who wasn't George's assistant, was asked, "Is Bran the one is it a Bran point of view that delivers the last line?" He says, "I can't tell you that." So he doesn't say, "I don't know." He says, "I can't tell you that." Right? I'm not allowed to talk about that, or something along those lines. Right? I mean, I don't remember the exact words, but the point is,
Yeah, well, chances are, when somebody says that, the question was correct. 9 times out of 10.
Probably, and it starts with a Bran chapter, and Bran's and we know that he told Dan and Dave that Bran sits on the throne at the end, and so maybe it's not the Iron Throne, maybe it's located in Winterfell, maybe it's located in the God's Eye, whatever. But the point is, that we know that that King Bran was in his plan, right? So anyway, the point is, a lot more will come out. So will we obviously, that's not what we want. What we want is George to stay healthy, George to write the books, George to get them to the point where he's comfortable with them, where he likes how it finishes and publishes it. That's and I do think that if he gets to the point where he's near the end and can see what he's doing, he's capable of writing much faster, right? It's when he's stuck that he has a problem, and he wasn't stuck in the first. He saw essentially where he was going and where he was going to end before the 5-year gap and so forth, while he was writing the first 3 books, and that's why they came out in 96, 98, 2000, and in that same time period, he wrote most of the Duncan Egg stuff, right? So 4-year span from the release of the first book to the release of the 3rd book, or just barely over 4 years, and he wrote a ton of stuff. And it was because he could see where he was going, and if he gets close enough to the end that he sees where he's going, he could be in a faster writing style at that point, right? So he could get to the point over the hill where he can write faster.
Yeah, I think when his head is solely in Westeros, depending on the time period, whether it's Dunk and Egg, whether it's Fire and Blood, or whether it's A Song of Ice and Fire, when his head is in Westeros, and there's none of the other distractions going on, this video game, that movie, another short story, whatever, as long as those distractions are not there and he's in Westeros, I think he's like lightning when it comes to the words. And then once the show started, I think the show is what has slowed down A Song of Ice and Fire, because the distractions just started coming in left and right. The show's worldwide popular. They show videos of whole entire bars just standing there reacting to the show. He's wanting to be, people at this conference wanting to come and talk. This college wants him to come and talk. So the distractions started, and once the distractions started, I think it's increasingly hard for him to go like this and just be in West.
I still think he could get inspired though, and see the end and be able to write faster. I think that could still happen. I'm not saying that it's certain, but I still think it's quite possible. Also, the rainbow 7 colors represent the 7 Kings Guard, and equal the faith of 7. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think. I think he's talked about legacy. I think he understands that he'd have a much better legacy if he finished. So I do think he is motivated. I don't think it's true that he's just distracted and rich and doesn't care anymore. Yeah. It's a play on the White Cloaks. While broken down into its 7 parts. Yeah, of course, that white light is the rainbow. Sure. Call of the 7 and whatnot. Yep.
You talking about like a prism?
Yeah. The symbolism of the 7 and the faith, but it's a coincidence in our modern understanding. Right. I mean, that's what George says. It's just a coincidence, right? It's more about that, right? He'll finish it or he won't.
Make him different from the White Cloaks, and it's actually not that bad of an idea of having each of the King's Guard for another king different from the White Cloaks. You don't want to have White Cloaks and White Cloaks for the King's Guard on two opposite kings. They get confusing on the battlefield.
Senator Grexham is basically agreeing that he's not motivated by money. He's not going to give up. He's definitely talked about it, thinking about his legacy and so forth. Let's go Wheel of Time now. I'm not sure how it works after the author is gone because I'm only on the second book. Yeah, that's definitely nowhere near where the transition would take place.
Did he say he's not a fan of fiction, and he doesn't
Sure.
want his someone writing about his universe after?
Yeah, although he is somewhat hypocritical on that, and I think I've sent you some of his fan fiction about Jaime and Tyrion and so forth, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, it may not have been about money in the beginning, but it definitely doesn't help that he's losing motivation and writing himself into a corner with the low character age. Yeah. Certainly, he's talked about how he wishes he wrote it like Book of the New Sun, where he had a first draft through before he published the first book.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely kind of wishing it was more like the architect instead of the gardener on a lot of this, for sure.
He's wishing he did what his mentor Gene Wolfe did with the Book of the New Sun, and he specifically says that, right? Jerem sent me the ending in a dream. It rocks. I have full confidence in him. No, I can't tell you. Right. So it's the Expanse guys plus Lady Thistle plus Dan and Dave. All right, fair enough. Anyway, all right. So back to Bran. Once you master your gifts, blah 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 blah. In a year, 3 or 10, blah 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 blah. Then somehow he was back at Winterfell again. Here we go. In the Godswood, looking down upon his father. Lord had seemed much younger this time, right? And like your point is, he didn't look much younger, so it should have been recent. So it was likely that it was when we saw Ned cleaning his sword to begin the story. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that would create a connection for the reader's mind of what theme is going on in that.
His hair was brown with no hint of gray in it. His head bowed. Let them grow up close as brothers with only love between them. And of course, I like the interpretation that Ned actually knows that Robb isn't his, and that it's the opposite of what most fans think. That yes, he does think that they're cousins growing up as brothers, but that he's actually doing it the other way around from what most people think is going on. And let my lady wife find it in her heart to forgive, right? And so I do not believe that. Catelyn does not think that there's anything wrong with Ned having fathered a bastard. She's not. I mean, she definitely doesn't. She definitely resents the fact that he's calls him son for all the North to see, right? And she says that she definitely resents the fact that he calls him son. But I personally think that this is telling us that in fact, this is a story that the author felt the need to add bigamy to Dany's story the second time he published Dany's story. He published it the first time in Blood of the Dragon, the second time in Game of Thrones. That was the one big change that he felt had to be made in Dany's story was to add bigamy. And so I do think that Ned is married to a Shardane, and that he's actually not praying about Catelyn here. He's praying about a Shardane.
Read the line again.
And let my lady wife find it in her heart to forgive.
So at this early of a stage, after the children are born, he's in the Godswood. So in his mind, he's still thinking Ashara first.
Oh, okay. So Tony Teflon has a great video on this eccentric excrement, and there was actually an even better video that's been marked as private that Bartube had, but I have links to them in. I don't know if it's in episode 1 or episode 2 or both. If I go into the but yeah, Tony Teflon's videos is out there. So the 9-month statement that Cat makes is somewhat ambiguous as to whether it's applying to to the previous discussion of the fact that she was with Brandon, or whether it's when Ned leaves, right? And
I mentioned this not too long ago.
yeah, we talk about it all the time. We always bring it up. But so there's specific clues about which ages Kat cares about Rob, and about how she wants Rob to grow as tall as his father. So yeah, Kat thinks and in the app, they talk about how Ned really didn't want to marry Kat. That's not actually in the main canon, but the app does talk about how there was like some fierce negotiation to convince Ned to marry Kat. And so the point being that
the blackfish over here is correct.
Hey, what do you mean? The blackfish? I mean, we think the blackfish may have been partially motivated by the fact that Ned is being forced to marry Kat.
Right.
But anyway, it's so the specific ages that Kat thinks about. Kat thinks about the specific ages that were important moments in Brandon's life, and that were irrelevant ages for Ned. And it's each of the key events of Brandon's life that Kat thinks about when she thinks of what ages she wants Rob to reach. She wants him to grow as tall as his father, where Ned is short, and Rob is already tall. So anyway, the point is that there's definitely some clues in there but now it's very ambiguous, and you could easily interpret the 9 months as being when Ned left, rather than the earlier paragraph, which she was talking about her time with Brandon. But
also in the birth of Rob and the move to Winterfell, I want to say that I said that she is fiddling with the numbers. That to ensure that Rob is older than John, and to ensure that
no, I think it's the other way around. She's fiddling with the numbers to make Rob not obviously older than John, because
she's making sure that people don't realize that it's Brandon's.
Right. Good evening, chat. Old new dude, Richard at April May. Yeah. Good evening, Kirsty. And I commented on her saying good evening before, and she's told us she's Irish. So I don't know why I was even doing that. Anyway, James says to Kat when he's held prisoner that Kat wasn't pure when she married Ned. Kat didn't deny it. Right? Yeah, she seems bizarrely unconcerned with that particular stain on her honor. Right? Yeah.
And not to mention what we're told about Brandon, that he preferred to see blood on one versus the other.
Eccentric excrement is married to an expert, so he defers to Thistle on Ned, Ashara, Catelyn, and Brandon. Supposed to annul his legitimate marriage to Ashara in order to keep the alliance between the North and the Riverlands. Yeah, absolutely. Now, see Triple Tickers episode 2
about that. Okay, you're the House Stark. You're in the North. You follow the old god. Mm-hmm. Can you annul?
It's funny. It's funny how many people simultaneously realize that Ned doesn't consider the vow on Baelor's steps to be anything, right? A number of people point that out, and I believe it's the Nauticast podcast that has commented that George was upset by one of the things in the show, which was that Rob got married in a sept instead of in front of a tree, and that George was like, no true Northman would marry in a sept. So, and yet people point these things out, and yet they don't notice that means that his marriage to Kat wouldn't be something that he would even consider binding. Like, how can you point that out and not realize that Ned wouldn't, that there's questions as to the legitimacy of Ned marrying Kat, right?
Yeah. See, even if they didn't have a weirwood tree available for them to say their vows in front of,
There,
He is.
yeah, like Lady Crystal's like exactly. The vow on the
No,
steps is key to seeing how he plays the system, right? It's like the vow to your shoes that Melisandre says, right? A vow to your shoes is a vow to the trees is no more binding than a vow to your shoes because she only believes in vows to the red god. Um,
right.
makes
But
sense
yeah,
if Ned never
what's that?
makes sense if Ned never told her about John's mom. If Bran and Ashara are his parents, and Ned agreed to marry Ashara on Bran's behalf, that's the other interpretation. But then was forced to marry
Yeah.
Cat, and I'm Australian, not Irish. I thought you said you're Irish. Hmm. All right, whatever. Maybe somebody else said they were Irish.
I don't know.
Yeah, sorry about that, Kirsty. I probably confused you with someone else. Um,
You
that's
have
why I
so
placed
many
it in
fans,
quotes
it's hard to
because
keep them all straight.
Ned seems to view it, yeah, right, and treat John as legitimate either way. Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I
Anyway,
mean, not
um,
the switch theories, but I mean, there. If John is a true trueborn Stark, there are two theories that fit that category. Brandon and Shara meet in King's Landing in the Black Cells because we know Dorcas can get people into the Black Cells and out of the Black Cells. She was uh, a high born lady. The company with the princess. So yep, they did the hanky panky. They said their words in the Black Cell, whatever. Uh, Even if they didn't say the words in the Black Cell, they still did the hanky panky. She meets up with Ned. Ned finds out she's pregnant with Brandon. Brandon's dead. What would Ned do to save the honor of Lady Ashara? Um, that he's in love with, anyways.
I actually don't. I mean, I'm okay with that, but I actually prefer the idea that John is actually the one trueborn son of Ned Stark.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the one
and
I prefer too. But I was just making sure that
yeah,
we
yeah,
were
yeah.
all.
No, that's certainly a reasonable, another reasonable theory.
Those- I prefer those two
So
over.
especially in terms of the symbolism of Ned being the irony of Sansa thinking that that John is our half brother and a bastard and all this stuff, right? And the and Gene Wolfe is one of his favorite things for making a book rereadable is to have there be an initial interpretation, have prove to you that there's something not quite right about it, give you a completely different alternative, and then it turns out there's a way around that proof to get back to the original idea that it's basically correct. There's just some wrinkle or twist that you didn't understand. And
Yeah,
to me, that Ned being, John being trueborn is that, right? It gets you back to basically the initial interpretation of Ned and Ashara without it being just that. There's more to it, right? That gets around the proof that it's wrong, which is that you would never father a bastard kind of thing, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, the Stark bloodline, as far as John is concerned, is why I say that the old gods consider him the king of winter. Um, if he's Brandon's, he's the firstborn of the firstborn. Brandon dies before John's born, and he's Ned's, then he's the firstborn of the king of winter. Um, so I mean, yeah, I prefer
Sure.
either Stark theory to the Rhaegar and Lyanna one for sure.
Sure. And it's funny how many of the clues that Danny is R plus L get relabeled as, well, this, when she sees a vision of a wolf here and a vision of a wolf there and the vision of the red wedding and all these things, well, these are just proof that John is a Targaryen. And I'm like, you've decided that everything is proof that John's a Targaryen.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've said it plenty of times. It all depends on what you believe, on how you get the facts to line up.
Yeah, and then
It's
and then people are like, "Oh, there's
all
no
depends.
evidence that Danny is a secret Stark." I'm like, "Well, yeah, if you reassign all the evidence that Danny's a secret Stark to being John as a secret Targaryen, then there's no evidence that Danny's a secret Stark, I suppose, if you just reassign it all."
Yeah. On those words, though, it all depends on who's your favorite characters, on who you give passes on things that they did that were wrong. If they're
Oh yeah,
if your
absolutely,
favorite,
absolutely.
I don't see any wrong. You see no wrong in them, and if you hate them, then everything they do is wrong.
If we keep agreeing on that, people will think we're a cult. I also ascribe to N plus A equals J, but John's parentage is definitely a significant mystery George has posed. Sure, I mean, yeah, it makes sense that people are supposed to speculate on that, and that they're going to see that that Ray Garliana had offspring and assign that that way.
Well, also, if people are
Danny
concerned
has,
about John's parentage, and that's the main concern, then not as many people are concerned about Danny's real parentage.
yeah,
And
Danny
I
has way
that
more. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, Danny has way more connections to Stark shit than John has to Targ shit. Almost none. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, they reassign the things that are to Danny, implying R plus L and so forth, and they say, "Oh, this proves John." Like when John's nowhere near the wall, when John's basically off with Core and Half Hand, and nobody else besides the reader and John would ever associate John with being the wall. Danny's presented a vision of a blue rose, and everybody's like, "Oh, this proves John is R plus L." I'm like, "It does? How's that fair to Danny or the reader?" Anyway,
we pointed out,
anyway,
the blue rose could definitely be uh, a okay. The blue rose being John, okay. The blue rose being Val, the daughter of Rhaegar and Lyanna. The daughter would be wearing the what's it called?
sure.
The wreath or whatever of blue roses.
Mhm.
The or holding a bouquet of blue
Sure.
roses. It would be Val, not John.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's go to the next vision. Is of course the rest of his father's words were drowned out by sudden clatter of wood on wood. Eddard Stark dissolved like mist in a morning sun. Now two children danced across the godswood, hooting at one another as they dueled with broken branches. The girl was the older and taller of the two. Arya, Brent thought eagerly as he watched her leap up onto a rock and cut at the boy. That couldn't be right. If the girl was Arya, the boy was Bran himself, and he had never worn his hair so long. And Arya never beat me playing swords the way that girl is beating him. She slashed the boy across his thigh so hard that his leg went out from under him, and he fell into the pool and began to splash and shout. "You be quiet, stupid," the girl said, tossing her own branch aside. "It's just water. Do you want old Nan to hear and run and tell father?" She knelt and pulled her brother from the pool, but before she got him out again, the two of them were gone. So,
Okay, now
I don't think there's much speculation needed here, to be honest.
she sounds just like Arya, though. It's funny.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you be quiet, stupid. Yeah, that was, and because there were like two times, I think at least two times before that, where Bran was thinking about things being stupid and stuff, I kept saying, "We're gonna get more Stark saying stupid in this chapter," because yes, it's very Arya. It's very Arya and Bran actually. So anyway,
Girl, who's the boy? Is it
obviously it's Benjen.
okay? Well, I always get confused on how old. I think you settled this before too. That Lyanna is younger than Ned. So yeah, it's Benjamin.
Yeah, yeah,
All right, I keep forgetting that in my head. For
yeah.
some reason, the show having Lyanna ride in on the horse, she looks older than the Ned and the Benjen that are practicing at swords. So I keep getting that image in my head that Lyanna is older than Ned, but in the book she's not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. He saw no more of his father, and the girl who looked like Arya, but a woman heavy with child emerged naked and dripping from the black pool, knelt before the tree, and begged the old gods for a son who would avenge her. And uh, I, Chloe had said something about the Blackwoods or something here. I don't know. It's so this should be because we later see the Dunk vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
A young knight as tall as Hodor is the next one, and we're told a little bit after this that these visions were in order, that the trees were getting smaller and smaller as the visions proceeded.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be after Old Nan and Dunk.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I mean,
Well,
Chloe had something about the Blackwoods or something, but I don't know what's going on in the history that would be
I think
after.
it's the very next vision.
Then there came a brown-haired girl, slender as a spear, who stood on the tips of her toes to kiss the lips of a young knight as tall as Hodor. A dark-eyed youth, pale and fierce, sliced 3 branches off the weirwood and shaped them into arrows. Now, wait, pretty much everybody thinks that that's the Brandon that wants to assassinate the Conqueror's dragons, right?
Right.
It makes the most sense to me that, yeah, well, I know that the next one is Old Nan. Oh, I see. You're saying you and Lady Thistle are both saying that they're connected, that that's actually Old Nan.
Yeah,
Oh,
because don't we get the same sort of imagery with like the Lady Weber and Dunk with the standing on the toes or whatever. But I mean,
okay. So that means that this is Old Nan
Old Man
giving
giving birth.
birth, and she wants her son to avenge her. Oh, and of course, we like the theory that the Order of the Green Hand has presented that Old Nan is actually Rowan Weber,
Mhm.
and that because there's this great parallel with the dyeing of the red hair with Sansa, right? And
Mhm.
and fleeing a Lannister marriage and going to one of the great houses in one of the most remote locations where the Lannisters could least get to you.
Right.
And so that would imply that this is kind of a Stark Lannister thing in a sense. Okay.
Well, I mean, granted, you had Ned, then younger Ned, and then in my mind it was even younger Ned, but I keep getting that wrong. And then you have Old Nan, and then Old Nan again. The vision should be connected in some way to the vision that comes before or after.
Right, and that's what Lady Thistle's arguing yeah, it makes the most sense to me that it's Old Nan. His mind is controlling where he goes. Here, we're told that Lyanna mentions Old Nan and reminds Bran of her, and there she is. Okay, all
Yeah.
right, I like it. I like it. That's an interesting interpretation.
Strong connection to Ned,
Well,
and he has
and it,
also a strong connection to Old Man.
right. Okay. All right. Now, why does it go into the assassination of the dragons? I don't know. It's a Brandon. I mean, it's a Brandon that's involved in the planning of the assassination of Aegon's dragons. So
Hmm.
maybe.
I don't know.
And as we said, the tree itself was shrinking, growing smaller with each vision. The lesser trees dwindled, the saplings and vanished, replaced by other trees that would dwindle and vanish in their turn. And now the Lord's Brand ghosts were tall and hard, stern men in fur and chainmail. Some wore faces you remember from the statues in the crypts, but they were gone before you could put a name to them. Right. So that's just him going all the way back to the old Starks and the people that he's somewhat connected to only through the statues, essentially.
Right.
And then finally you get what's probably what's perhaps the dawning of the magic of the Weirwoods, potentially with the human sacrifice.
The weirwoods absorbing the blood,
Yeah, maybe that's actually the
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 life power
first.
from the blood.
Right, that's how they originally become magical, essentially, right? Is through some sort of blood sacrifice.
It would be nice to know if he could see if that's the first sacrifice to a weirwood. Are they white with red leaves at that point?
I don't know. Then, as he watched, a bearded man forced a captive down onto his knees before the heart tree. A white-haired woman stepped toward them through a drift of dark red leaves, a bronze sickle in her hand. No, said Bran. No, don't. But they could not hear him no more than his father had. And of course, we know our characters are often wrong, but you'd think that they would listen if they really did hear him say, no, no, don't, if they really could hear God speak saying that. Anyway,
What
then
if he
grab the
didn't
captive.
speak common, this old tongue?
Oh, because it's the common, it doesn't mean anything to them. Okay.
Don't mean.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, you're right. If it could, to them, it may even have sounded like encouragement somehow, right? The woman grabbed the captive by the hair, hooked the sickle around his throat, and slashed. And through the mist, because they don't say anything, or at least nothing that he could understand, and
Right.
slashed. Through the mist of centuries, the broken boy could only watch as the man's feet drummed against the earth. But as his life flowed out of him in a red tide, Brandon Stark could taste the blood. Yeah, that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah. Now, that might not be the actual first sacrifice at that tree. That just
Sure, but It might be some sort of awakening of power that matters, though.
Well, I think the key thing we're supposed to get out of that is him tasting the blood. That's to let us know that the tree is drinking the blood. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the first sacrifice for that to happen. It's
Yeah, that's
just
one thing that's in this chapter that's a little interesting is that Brendan seems to think that weirwoods need the soil and water and so forth rather than. But given that so many of them seem to be growing in cave kind of areas, you think they were? I always thought they were more zombie trees that required blood.
hmm,
Who do you think is significant about this sacrifice specifically? Right, that's a good question. Is it the woman? Is it the man? Is it the sacrifice? Um, the captive, I guess I could say. The woman grabbed the captive by the hair, hooked the sickle around his throat, and slashed. So I think the guard that holds him down is just a guard, right? A bearded
oh,
man forced the captive down onto his knees before the heart tree. So the bearded man isn't probably just a guard. I imagine it's the white-haired woman that's in charge there.
okay. I got all right. If we erase the old man imagery in our head, and the person is actually the 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 the, the pregnant woman is the girl on the toes kissing the Brandon that cuts the uh the arrows out. Every vision is about Stark. All right. Even though it's a
Okay.
pregnant woman that's not a Stark, the child that she's bearing is. So there's a Stark present in every vision. Then the sacrifice could be the sacrifice of a Stark. Which Stark, I don't know.
Well, that kind of goes to the theory that it's not the heart of a falling star; it's the heart of a falling Stark, right? That that gets sacrificed.
hmm
They got
Definitely
changed
not as
into
many.
star.
Yeah, it's definitely not as many visions as Danny gets. So, but there's still, there's still something there. What it is, it's.
Yeah, I still think it's old man.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
see that having thought it was old man all this time, I have a hard time. I can't get away from that thought that it is old man, which would make the guy dumb.
And then Christy says Rhaegar called out Lyanna's name before he died. If Jon is Lyanna's child, Rhaegar could have gone into her womb. Second life magic. If Jon is Rhaegar reborn, or Dany if she's their child, or see Trust the Targaryens.
Now I say that
Sure.
Ilyana had already given birth by that time.
That Lyanna had already given birth. Yeah, you. So I do think there's a good presentation of this concept of Rhaegar and Lyanna being in the crypts, right? There's definitely um, this Bael the Bard tale of somebody having been hidden in the crypts the entire time they were pregnant and so forth, right? And Rhaegar and Lyanna disappear, and so then the question becomes, were they hiding in the crypts? Does it really make any sense that they're hiding in a tower at the on one of the few passes, the border of Dorne?
Yeah,
Given that we know that it's all a choke point, where yeah, oh, is that really a reasonable place to be hidden for 9 months or more?
yeah. For some of the newer people, I think that they were in Winterfell long enough for her to have the children in our opinion, and was traveling so soon after, because we're told that Maester Lewin, when Cat was well enough to travel, accompanied her to Winterfell. The well enough to travel part is the key. Once the children were born, they traveled south. Rhaegar, Lyanna, and the children, and the Maester from Winterfell, just like the Maester from Riverrun traveled with Cat. The Maester from Winterfell traveled with them. They went to Bear Isle and then went south to Starfall, and they're on their way to King's Landing. And because she traveled so soon after having triplets, and it might not have been an easy birth, she falls ill. All right, a high fever. She's found in a bed of blood, which George hides. That everybody assumes is the birthing bed, but it's not the only plausible reason for a bed of blood. If she's running high fever, bloodletting at the time was key. So that's what I think. She was actually in a bed of bloodletting. That was the reason for all the blood. And the children were born before that, before Rhaegar died. But
And as I've said, I like how you're trying to make all the pieces fit and tie back in the Bale of Bard and so forth. But I do think that most likely the symbolism of them being born in Dorne and potentially being subject to Dornish laws is important. The idea that perhaps Val should be the rightful heir, and that Arthur Dane would have gone with Val up north with the separation of the separation of the heirs matching with Lewin separating the heirs and so forth. That if they're born in Dorne, it makes it more symbolic, and so forth. And so therefore, in the Weeds of Winter, George would be likely to pull that if he originally was thinking it was in Winterfell. That's
yeah, I
kind of
like
my
that a lot.
interpretation.
The even though I like my theory, I what you just said in my mind makes a whole lot of sense with Sir Arthur going with Val, because in Dorne, just like what they're going to try to pull with Marcella, that it would be Val as the true heir, being the first of the triplets being born, then Fagon, then Danny. But Sir Arthur staying with Val, I mean, it makes a whole lot of sense in my head.
Kirsty just always wonder if there's something happening when old man's knitting needles go click, click, click as she starts telling her stories.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. Well, no, the Order of the Green Hand point that click, click, click as like spider
Spider was weaving
imagery
webs.
to tie her to Lady Weber.
Yeah. Well, we're less than 5 minutes left. Is there anything else we need to talk about? I mean, you did bring up the Hall and the Half Maester as Wallace Flowers thing, essentially, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Right. So the point being that we know that when Lewin is confronted with the idea that the king is dead, he thinks that the heirs must remain hidden and dead, and that they need to separate them and not
Yeah.
together and so forth, right? And so this concept of the Maester of Winterfell separating the heirs of the dead king then kind of ties into the Halt and the Half Maester, and the idea that the Maester would want to go with the boy, while Arthur Dane, representing the Dornish and the concept of Asher as the Dione, would want to go with the oldest female, right? And so Arthur Dane would want to take Val up north, and Halt and the Half Maester would want to be with the boy, and then maybe potentially that left. Potentially that left a Shara or something with trying to get Danny over to Viserys or something, right?
Yeah, I mean that my theory, other than when the baby was born, if it's a difficult pregnancy, which a lot of times triplets are a difficult pregnancy, especially in these lack of modern medicine stories that were being told, I can see the Maester, even if it's just traveling while she's extremely pregnant and not having a good time of it, the same Maester would still travel with Lady Lyanna south with her and Rhaegar, because Rhaegar's got to get his way back to King's Landing. So even if I'm wrong about the bloodletting bed, and it's actually a birthing bed, that still puts the Maester in play to be Hall and Half Maester. So
Sure. Or Wallace Flowers, as he's referred to by Lady Dustin, right? Let's wrap. I'm being told that my battery's about to die, apparently. So
okay, all right.
I might
Well,
lose my
this is
audio here in a second.
we covered a lot more material this time than we did last Wednesday, so I like it when that happens. The discussions help a lot.
Blood Raven 1000 Eyes and One, an old man with the stories. To me, parallel 1001 Nights in Arabia and I don't know what that word is. The storyteller who married the king who murders all his wives because the first one cheated on him. Okay. I'm not familiar with that. Okay.
I'm not either. What are we doing?
Wondering if the rest of the visions that came after Nan are triggered by Bran's associating her with the old stories. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So he thinks of them and sees the characters they were about. Okay. Okay. I
It
like that.
still ties the ones that come after Two Old Man, if
Too
that's
old
the reason.
man. Yeah. I like
Yeah,
that. I like that a lot.
we'll do too.
Yeah. Sorry.
Um,
Got to wrap up. I'm probably going to get cut off here if we don't. Apparently, I don't
I
know.
appreciate
I've
it.
never had a battery warning before.
That's all right.
So,
Appreciate everybody. Really good theory Wednesday. We appreciate it. We will see y'all Friday. Y'all have fun. Take care and bye. Bye, Richard.
have a good one.